everyone, my name is Josh and this is Whimsical and Interesting Musings, and today I'm going to give you a video which is a reading of my novel from the Sleeper's Notebook. And this novel is basically, the section I'm going to read for you today actually kind of prompted me to want to do more writing of this particular novel. And it's a chapter involving not the main character of the novel, but one of the main characters, named Anthony Vale. And he's the best friend of the main character, Joseph White, and they were friends throughout most of their school days. In fact, they were very close, and then one day, for some unknown reason, Anthony Vale decided to leave the school that they went to and basically never return. And he went without saying goodbye. So Joseph is kind of wondering, why has he left? What did he leave for? And he's trying to find out why. And he has since been taken to a place called Fieldstone Heights, which is a place where he can recuperate after basically going down a very kind of sad and very kind of, lonely existence. He has what's essentially called sleep. It is essentially, has what's called a ghost, which is when he's so, alone and so distant and so afraid that he basically, starts to hallucinate and see all sorts of different things. And it's all related to something that the main character did when he was a child, where he could, basically, when he was a child, he used to touch things and they would magically, come to life. So he has some form of magic, but it's more psychological than just pure enchantment. So he has this condition which he can do that, and for the longest time it has worked for him in his childhood, but since becoming a teenager, he's kind of, found it very difficult to adjust, and he has something inside himself which he just needs to get out and he needs to discover. So he decides to kind of, stay away from friends for a while because he doesn't know quite what his role in this journey is. But he goes through a little bit of a rough trial, and he begins to reawaken this magical, this enchanted ability that he has. But it has really kind of darker effects, because when you're a teenager, things are a little bit more, up and down, a little bit more, grittier and dark and goth-like. So I thought, instead of being nice, charming and lovely, it's very kind of, drab, horrible and very decrepit looking. So he gets isolated and alone and sad, and he feels alone because these things are haunting him. So he gets taken to a place called Fieldstone Heights, and there he meets his childhood friend Anthony Vale, and Anthony Vale has never really told him why he left school those years ago. And throughout the course of his stay at Moonhaven Heights, sorry, I got the name wrong, he is able to spend some time with his best friend and really get to the bottom of why he left. And in this particular chapter, which I'm going to read, which is called Share a Story, it's going to basically highlight what's been going on with Anthony Vale. So from his point of view, he's just gone for a run and he's about to engage in his first therapy session with Dr Allingham. And this is the third section of the first chapter, Share a Story. And I hope you enjoy, and I hope you're having a very good day. Okay, so this is Share a Story, Chapter 2. "Good morning, Mr. Vale. How are you feeling this morning?" Allingham asked, looking up from his armchair with a cheerful smile. "Like I regret not rinsing myself before all this?" Anthony paused, allowing the residue of his walk to soak through, swallowing his feet in warmth and numbness as he made his way to the centre of the room. "God, I feel so worn out. Bury to chat. You?" Anthony added, reapplying himself to the seat opposite the doctor with a thud. "I'm very well, thank you. Also, no worries. It's always good to be punctual and on time. Is there anything I can get you to drink before we start?" Allingham inquired, pointing a finger over to a dark wood cabinet just behind Anthony's chair. Anthony nodded. His face was a cold fringe of white speckles, lining his forehead with the commonplace of damp. "Can I have some water, please?" Allingham rose. The wind outside was beginning to rise and rattle the glass-framed door with a sudden blast of cold air. Anthony nodded his thanks upon receiving the glass, and the doctor seated himself opposite. "Oh, Doctor, can I ask quickly? Joseph White didn't get his tracker when he first got here. Is there a reason?" Anthony paused to swallow once he felt the sharp twinge of warm bile stifle his speech. "Only, I got mine when I arrived, literally the first day." Allingham gave an expression of momentary confusion as he flicked his eyes to Anthony and back to the assortment of notes. "No, I'm sorry. I'll have a word with management about that, and I can see what I can do. In the meantime, let's get started." Allingham readjusted his position on the chair and smiled warmly. "How are you feeling today?" the doctor asked. Anthony sat himself upright, noticing he was slouching when the balls of Dr. Allingham's knees were visible when he crossed his legs. "Remember, eye-to-eye contact, Anthony." Excuse me. "Remember, eye-to-eye contact, Anthony." A mock version of Allingham's voice rang in his head as he rose so that his eyes were level with the doctor's own. "I'm good. Better than when I first came here, anyway," Anthony said, nodding his head in general positivity. The brows of his forehead glazed with the white-lighted damp as he wiped it away with the underside of his palm. "That's good. How have you been settling in since we last spoke? Are you used to the layout, where everything is, how it all works?" Anthony took a moment to sip at his drink, mulling the question over in his mind as he slowly drank. Allingham took a moment to sip at his water, mulling the answer over in his mind as he slowly drank. "Avoid giving yes or no answers. Whenever possible, elaborate." "Yeah, I know everything. I've been on my walks, and I know the best and safest paths to do it. I even showed my old mate, Joseph White, where everything is in the place. He knew he shouldn't have lied, but part of him felt it wasn't too bad to say at least one, since both him and Joe have a lot of catching up to do now that they're sharing a roof. But I don't want to leave my room most of the time. I like to keep to myself." "So you don't go down to the billiard room and socialise?" Allingham's head tilted slightly, a crease to the lines of his head like melted wax deepening his brow into an expression of concern. "I do sometimes. I mostly sit with people at meal times, like Jamie Yule and the groups that go canoeing and the assault course teams. When I see them, anyway." "How are you with making friends, if you don't mind my asking?" Allingham's words were direct with a gentle tone. Anthony had learned during his introductory session that this was established to ensure a mellowed or relaxing vibe, since someone of his character should be able to answer such a question without the need to stumble over his words. This measure was put in place to establish the patient's mood, or general temperance in the face of being asked a question some could consider personal, which either worked or didn't depending on the individual and the tone being set from the beginning. "Yeah, I'm good at making friends. Not good at keeping them sometimes, because, they might be total arseholes, but the ones that are good to me, I'm good to them. Loyalty, isn't it?" "That's good. You have strong enough convictions when to stick around and when to walk away." "That's not conviction to me. That's like saying do or die. When I think it's just if you like someone and enough, enjoy their company, you stay. And if you hate them, just walk the other way." Anthony's voice caught in his throat, realising perhaps the contradictory nature of his response. Allingham didn't reply. "Let's talk about your family, shall we?" "Well, what do you want to know?" Anthony's voice indicated his being taken aback. Perhaps it was because of how the question was worded, or the pregnant pause between his own reply to the doctor's last question and the supposed follow-up being nothing more than stillness, which reduced the chilled air in the room to feel all the more noticeable. But all the same, Anthony could feel the heated exchange brewing. "Well, how are you with your father, mother, and sister? Scarlet Vale, was she the one who—" Allingham reached for his water and took a more than generous mouthful. Yeah, Anthony coughed to clear his throat. "She's the one who went missing." "I see. Well, we will have to talk about that at some point, but for now, let's keep it casual. Small steps." "Can we not? It's just, I don't think I'm ready to go there just yet." Allingham's voice quivered slightly as he spoke. His foot was thumping loudly on the carpeted floor. "Well, like I said, we will have to talk about it eventually. That's why you're here." Allingham's eyes held an expression of surprise, yet his tone remained measured with his words, level-headed and calm as he spoke them. "Well, is it that you don't want to speak about it now? Are you still feeling down about it?" Like I said to the doctor, Doctor, I'm not ready to go there yet." "Fair enough. Let's quickly talk about your parents. How are they?" Anthony slapped a hand on his knee with more aggression and loudness than what he intended. "Well, my mum's a mess, and she hates me. And my dad stepped out of the picture not long after Scarlett was born." "Sorry to hear that. How does that make you feel?" "Your parents not being together." "Angry? I don't know. Confused?" "Confused and angry in what way?" There was a strong void of silence following this, prompting Dr. Allingham to emerge with further queries as to the nature of his mood. "Anthony, come on. In what way did you feel angry or confused?" "I don't know. They were happy. They were happy when it was just three of us." "So in some small way you wish it was like the way it used to be?" Allingham asked, his eyes peering over the rims of his glasses, following Anthony's delay in answering him. "Yeah, but I'm also confused because there was this night when my mum and dad were arguing, and my dad was shouting, calling mum a liar when she said she couldn't have kids." "How did you come into being then?" Allingham asked. A chuckle of amusement followed as exasperation tinged his voice with pretended surprise. Allingham opened his mouth, readying himself to laugh, but nothing came. His expression wandered, like he was caught in a lie and trying to sift through his ponderings for the more reasonable solution. But he left the topic hanging in the air with an open mouth, his teeth partially showing with a thoughtful smirk. "My mum was a good mum. Encouraging, strict when she needed to be, caring and a good listener too. Like you could talk to her about anything. My dad was the same. He had his own problems, though." "How so?" "He wasn't good with big crowds or large family get-togethers. If it got overcrowded or he didn't like the music, he would just bugger off, which I wouldn't mind. It's Anthony's voice wavered slightly as his gaze fell to the floor. "It's just what?" Allingham asked, his pen poised over his notebook. "It's just, I could tell even then that something wasn't right. Like he was looking for any old excuse to get out of there. Blame the music, blame the overcrowding. It's all the same, really. He just didn't want to be near her, my mother." "Did you know your mother was having a baby around that time?" "I think I knew, but my mum and dad said nothing until several months later. The bumps started showing, and her moods changed. She was more on edge and testy. I just thought it was taking its toll on him too, that's all." "And did your father tell you this?" Anthony shook his head. "Then how did you know? There could be other reasons he avoids public family gatherings. Like you said, he might not like massive crowds, or the music isn't his cup of tea. Are there tensions within your family besides your immediate family?" Allingham, feeling the weight of the question, wanted to close his eyes at the pinch of overwhelming emotion. Then his veil of steady confidence tore as his eyes started to water. He shook his head once more, unable to bring the words out. Allingham unsheathed a quiver of tissues from a box over by his desk and put a soft velvety one into his hands as Anthony wept silently and gathered his courage. "He never said," Anthony said, snuffling as he lifted his head up, watery-eyed as shades of defeat and anguish loomed. "We used to talk about a lot, you know, me and my dad." His voice ached when he swallowed, the memory with the pain with... Excuse me. "We used to talk a lot, you know, me and my dad." His voice ached when he swallowed, the memory with the pain in his chest. Allingham's eyes creased into a soft frown, following concern with his sympathy. "What did the two of you talk about?" Anthony swallowed a gulp of water, lulling his mouth into a freshness of mind and a newly found calm which he could taste with his tongue when he opened his mouth to speak again. "Lots of things. Music, films, sports. He even tried explaining the birds and the bees to me. But I don't know. If he felt comfortable doing that." Allingham smiled. The blotchiness of the tears still showed in the glimmer of the lamplight when he focused his eyes back to Allingham. "I like talking about football. I used to always love following beating West Ham and Crystal Palace. Oh, I bet the two of you would really bring the house down during a match then, Allingham interrupted. Anthony continued, stern-faced, as if waving the comment away with a twitch of in his neck. But I can't talk about that stuff now, because he's just left me and his wheelchair-straddled wife to fend for ourselves. Do you want me to get in touch with him as soon as we're done? Allingham shook his head, the underside of his palm brushing away the dampness on his chin when he allowed the water from his nose to continue running when thinking about his father. He remembered his father as always willing to have a laugh, but it was like a light in his eyes faded somewhere along the way. If only he knew for certain. Scarlet couldn't be the only reason, surely. A small measure of him wanted to wish the man good riddance with his other life, his new family, his new home, his fresh bed, stained with the essence of passion, ecstasy, and strain following sexual intercourse. Yet part of him also wondered if he ever did have the heart to move on, and instead fell into the solitude of depression and a downward spiral of controlled substances being abused with a certain regularity, as if they were just like after-dinner mints for the one lesser known to care. Allingham cleared his throat with the breach of silence. How are you feeling about seeing Joseph White? I hear it's been a while since the two of you last saw each other. How long have you two been friends? Allingham asked with the finality of cheer in his throat. In his tone, Well, we've been friends for ages, since primary school. I'm happy to see him again. I'm sad to see him here, but it could mean a good thing, us catching up and talking things through. Allingham said whilst nodding. Well, that's all we have time for today. We'll pick up this session up some other time, okay? Anthony, in the meantime, have a great week and we will talk again soon. Both Allingham and Dr. Allingham both Anthony and Dr. Allingham stood from their seated positions and shook hands before Anthony left the room, hands in his pockets and his head spinning. As he left the office, he showed a smile to Allingham's face, but once Anthony properly turned his back and made his way to the door, his eyes misted over, the smile held to his face flickered away with every footstep, and when the door closed, he allowed himself some space to quietly weep before returning to his room. That was chapter 2 of From Sleeper's Notebook, or at least the third section of chapter 2 from Sleeper's Notebook. And I hope you liked this video, and I hope you're all having a very good day. Take care, bye-bye for now. This has been Joshua WHIMS Cool and Interesting Musings, and take care, bye-bye for now.